Hello, everybody. Okay, so I would like to respond to some really great discussion that has been coming on the channel. Um, First off, bear in mind that I am just a human being and I am just sharing my opinion and what has worked for me. That's it. I'm not a licensed psychologist. I'm not an expert in borderline personality disorder. All I am is somebody who has been in a relationship with a borderline, who identifies themselves as a codependent, and sharing, as I said, what helps me to recover. You do whatever you need to do to help yourself. Um, it's okay with me if you disagree with me. Having said that, there's some really great comments, and I love to respond to comments in this way. I'd like to read some of them and respond. Um, I assume if you are willing to put a comment on a YouTube channel that the whole world can see, then you're prepared to have a discussion about it. So if not, then I guess don't leave a comment. I don't know. Anyway, so what I want to talk to you about is codependence and the uh, obviously the codependent is the non-borderline who's in a relationship with a borderline. Also, bear in mind borderlines. If you're new to this channel is for non-borderlines who are trying to recover from the trauma of having been in a relationship with a borderline. Okay, so basically, I'll just start by saying what I have been saying from the beginning, which you may or you may not have heard, depending on how many videos you've watched. But my experience and my opinion is that if you are somebody that has had or is in a relationship with a codependent, by definition, you are codependent. I mean, maybe haven't been codependent, or been aware of it at any situation in your life. But if you've gotten involved with a borderline and started a romantic relationship that's lasted for more than like a a night or two, or once it's gone into into it for a week, and any of the things associated with borderline personality disorder has come up, like they're love bombing you, or they've split on you and you're hanging around trying to make it work, or you have felt sorry for them and wanted to take care of them. Those are the things that have to happen after a short period of time. So that's just the reality of it. And bear in mind that codependence, like borderline personality disorder, is a disease of denial. One of the ways you know it is that you vehemently deny that you have it, and you vehemently resist any measure to look at it or to fix it. That's just the way it goes. So, for instance, if somebody is not a codependent and somebody points out to them, if the person is working through some kind of an issue and somebody says to them, you're definitely a codependent, or you're acting like a codependent. If they don't have a codependency, they go, really? Tell me more. I want to understand this. That shows that they're not defensive, and they're not, that they're not trying to deny it. If somebody is codependent, it is a very common reaction for them to want to defend against that and to deny that within themselves. So, bear in mind, that's going to make me feel, if somebody comes onto the channel and they've heard me say, bear in mind, I don't know who you are. You're just I haven't even met you. I'm just talking to the camera on my laptop. But if you feel as though I've talked to you and you feel that you need to defend yourself against me and my opinion about codependence and connection with borderlines, that is only going to make me feel more persuaded that you are in fact codependent. So just be aware of that. The more you deny it, the more it's going to make me feel that you are one. So anyway, I want to read some comments here. This is one of my latest videos where I said, you love a borderline so much that it hurts. Is it true love? And if I remember, I'm trying to share that your experience of loving them and your experience of wanting to help them and to fix them is actually quite selfish and quite damaging. Just as the borderline is clearly selfish and narcissistic and is wrapped up in their own needs at your expense, you are also wrapped up in your needs at their expense. And when you try and help them to such a degree that it just starts destroying your life, it's not coming from just a desire to help. I'm not saying that you don't have any desire to help. I'm just saying that it's more than just a desire to help. You know, what happens with a non-borderline, what happens with somebody who's not codependent is that if first and foremost, they're not going to be attractive to borderlines. Borderlines are attracted to abusers and codependents. And the abusers themselves are also codependent as well, I mean, by definition. So they'll be attracted to narcissists who will abuse them and torture them because it keeps them in their damage. They'll also be attracted to they'll also be attracted to codependents who will want to save them. And they can smell you. They know just by looking at you, they can feel whether you're codependent or not. This isn't a conscious thing. It's just that's what's attractive to them. They're not going to be attracted to somebody who's not codependent. And so if somebody who's not codependent does, by some strange chance, get involved with a borderline, that person, let's say they have a one-night stand. That person is going to go home going, there's something about that person that just isn't right. The love bombing is going to actually push them away. If they got love bombed, the seduction part of it, there would be red flags in them that would say, something is not right about this person. If, however, you responded really positively, and also if they come to you with a sob story, which may be very real about the challenges and difficulties in their life, the non-borderline is going to go, this is dangerous. This is something I don't want to get involved in. I feel sorry for them. Here's $5. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But the codependent is going to be pulled into that, the need to be the savior and all of that stuff. So anyway, let's get into some of the comments here. I won't mention anybody's names. You can see their names if you want to read the comments, but I'll try my best to be respectful and kind. I don't want to start flame wars, but I think this is really great fodder for investigation and conversation. I also believe that all of you have the ability to do your own self-analysis. I believe that you're all capable of making your own decisions and deciding if you agree or if you don't agree, if what I say is helpful or not helpful. You're perfectly capable of making those decisions yourself. You're perfectly capable of watching other channels and listening to other people's opinions and having your own opinion. As I said, I'm only sharing what's helped me. And I'll be honest with you, there's probably some things that I say that may be too, in some cases, too extreme or something like that. But that's because those are attitudes that I have needed in order to recover. And I think I'll address some of those as we go on. So here somebody says in response to "You love a borderline so much that it hurts" video, really you have listened way too much psychologists and read books of psychology and women's mags. Stop putting yourself and your feelings down. So I think that's a projection. Maybe that's how you think that I'm doing to you, that I'm putting you down and I'm invalidating your feelings when I say that your codependence is actually quite selfish and destructive. And to the next part, and then he says, I think you're spreading a religion. Well, if I am, I'm not aware of that. That's not my intention. My only intention initially was just to heal myself. And then the second thing is to share with people what's helped me. And if I was in denial, I would want somebody to point it out to me. So if I think what somebody says is in denial, which is part of the codependent mindset, then I'm going to point it out. You don't have to accept it or not. That's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. And then the person says, don't talk about you when you talk about yourself. Well, there's something to be said, but that's just how I function. Don't take it personally. If I'm in the midst of of something I'm trying to share, and I say, if you're a codependent, you this and you that, you don't have to take it on. That's okay. And then this person says, you're trying to force project your problems to others here. Well, yeah, I'm not trying to force project it, but there's some truth to that. I'm talking about my experience as a codependent, and so I assume, that if you're in a relationship with a borderline, that you suffer from the same codependency that I do. So there's some truth to that. But again, you're giving me far too much power than I really have, which is a codependent trait, by the way. I'm not powerful enough to force project anything on you. You're perfectly capable of hitting stop and saying, I don't want to watch this guy. I don't have the power to spread a religion. I'm not that powerful. Stop using the word codependent. Well, I'm not going to do that. I am going to continue to use it because I am codependent, and it's okay with me if you don't think you are. But here's one of the things about codependence. Codependence, like borderline personality disorder, is a self-diagnosed condition. In other words, even if the rest of us can see that you clearly are codependent, until you, whoever you are, decides that you believe you're codependent, it won't matter, because that's when the healing will come. So anyway, I'm not going to stop using it, but you can choose not to apply it to yourself. And then whoever put whatever psycho put that in your head is an irresponsible horse stock. I mean, nobody put that in my head. I've sought out my own codependent healing. Seriously, nobody's put that into my head. This is my own awareness. The awarenesses that I'm sharing with you are awarenesses that have helped me. So it's really important for me to take full responsibility for everything in my life. And that's one of the problems with both codependence and borderlines, is that they make other people responsible for their feelings. So I'm going to be fully responsible for my life and my feelings. And the truth is that if I am acting codependently, one of the things I know for sure is that I am not acting in the best interest of whoever I have a codependent attachment to. That's just a fact. And that helps me. When I become aware, and I wake up to the delusion that I'm here to help them, and no, my attachment, my need to take care of them, when it becomes this all-encompassing need, and my identity is wrapped up in taking care of and saving and fixing that other person, it's because I want something from them. It's purely selfish, and it's not in their best interest. And that is, I think, a really helpful awareness. It helped me. When I become aware of that, it helps me to stop engaging in behavior that's hurtful to me. So, as I say, true empathy is knowing when your need to fix somebody is not helpful to them. Sometimes people need to be in their misery in order to wake up and to heal. And sometimes they need to be left alone with themselves and the universe. And me getting in there and my need to help them, my need to empathize, is not empathy. Empathy means you have the power to go in somebody else's skin and say, if I were in this person's position, what I would need most, what would be most helpful for me. True empathy is allowing somebody their pain, allowing somebody their anger, their sadness, and not trying to fix it. The truth is that when somebody is trying to fix somebody else, what they're really doing, when, let's say, somebody's in pain, somebody is sad, somebody is whatever it is, your need to go and take that feeling away is actually violent. You probably didn't know that. But trying to stop somebody from being sad or being in pain is what you're basically saying to them is, stop doing that. You're making me uncomfortable. Knock it off. It's very invasive and it's very selfish. True empathy is saying, hey, I'm so sorry you're in pain. You know, I know what that's like, and I'll let you have that. You know, and true empathy is allowing somebody to hate you and not like you and reject you. You know, letting them do that and not taking it personally and not needing to talk them out of wanting to push you away, allowing them to have that. That's true empathy. That is not, you know, wanting to change anything about them in any way because you have a super strong need to do it is not empathy. That's not empathy at all. Anyway, I responded to that similarly to what I just said. And then this is what got me to think it. The same person comes on and says, listen, somebody who has empathy is not codependent. And then this was interesting. Stop labeling yourself as worthless. Stop it. Remember what I said, what codependents do when it's really selfish? They're trying to stop people from having their feeling, from having their experience. It's very controlling. Controlling is not empathy. So you're trying to control me here. And that's okay. It's not gonna bother me that you want to control me. I'm not gonna let you control me. I have the ability to not allow you to control me. But the thing I found most interesting here was stop labeling yourself as worthless. And my response was that was really interesting. So does that mean you feel worthless when you can't fix someone? Because codependency means that you're trying to fix something you can't fix. And so I just find that interesting that your response to that is to feel worthless. I don't feel worthless at all. In fact, I feel more empowered when I realize that I can't help that person. That's not my problem. Whew. It's a real burden. It's not my responsibility. I'm not God. Codependents also take on the role of God. They decide they're the only ones that can help the other person, and if they don't help the other person will die. That's irrational, megalomania. It's irrational ego. There's nothing I can do. It's not my responsibility to fix them or help them, and that doesn't make me feel worthless. Does it make you feel that way? If so, that's a sign of codependence. And so I responded something to that effect here. Let me see what other ones. Somebody says, I don't know that I will ever be fully recovered. And I can understand that. I think there's recovering and recovered. And codependence is something that even if you hit a level of recovery, of being recovered, you're not in any danger of falling into something at the moment with somebody new. It doesn't mean that isn't there. So I don't know that we ever really completely get total freedom from it. I could be wrong about that, but I do think that for a lot of people, it's something that they carry with them their whole life, and they just have to act. This is the great thing about 12-step work, is that you learn how to take contrary action. So you can have all the impulses to act on your feelings of codependence, and you know what you need to do, and that's really what's most important. What's most important isn't what you feel; it's what you do. I mean, in other words, you want to work through all those feelings and hopefully, grow past them. But those feelings and those impulses, if they don't go away, it's okay. It's not a death sentence. You can still have all of those codependent feelings and impulses and take healthy actions. And that's something we have control over, and we can choose to have control over for the rest of our lives. And that is really that's what we can control about being in a state of recovery. Let's see. I'm only looking for the comments here that I find interesting that I want to engage in discussion with. Anyway, that's an interesting one. I don't think I want to look at that. Here's one. This was, I think, my latest video where I'm sharing my experience with the 3 responses that come from borderlines, which if I remember, the 3 responses I'm seeing on this channel, which I was commenting on, is the first one is you've just got the average, what I'm calling the average response, which is people coming in and saying, thank you, I'm not alone, just acknowledging that whatever it is that I'm saying is helping them to feel like they're not alone and helping them to feel not so crazy and giving them comfort. So that's response number 1. Response number 2 is the codependent who is in denial and is angry. And my point was that, first off, that's normal. So let me just make that clear. I mean, that's something that if you're a codependent, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge your anger, that your needs and your expectations are not being met, and that the borderline is not giving you what you want and doing what you want. And you have every right to feel like that. You deserve to have somebody treat you with love and respect, and when they don't, you have every right to be hurt and angry. But my point is that to be in that continual state of anger for months or years after the fact means that you are in denial, because the only way you stay angry at somebody is if they have the power and the awareness to do something different, and they're choosing to do it to use you and hurt you. And if you are in that state, if you are feeling that kind of anger and continuing to indulge in that anger, it means that you are in denial that they're sick, that they have a mental illness. For me, when I became fully aware, when it would really hit me, and it's still, as time goes on, more and more, I become really aware with hindsight that the person I was with was really not capable. She really wanted to be loved. Whatever she did, and whatever defense mechanism she has, where she's aware of what she's doing and she's aware that she's hurting me and all that kind of stuff. The truth is that those were all part of her defense mechanisms. That underneath all of it, there was somebody who just wanted to be loved, and unfortunately, they have a mental illness which prevents them from being able to do that. And the very thing that they want is what drives them to do the really destructive behavior. In other words, they're mentally ill, they're broken. And once I became aware, the more deeply I became aware of how broken she was, the more I became aware that it wasn't about me, that I wasn't being rejected, and that she really wanted to love me, she just couldn't. And that helped me to disengage and disconnect. But that means that the denial that she was, that she had a mental illness was slipping away, and I was seeing what was going on. So my contention is that if somebody's angry and what they want to hold on to is that they chose to do it, that they're planning it out, and that they're getting off on it, regardless of whether that's true or not, you holding on to that belief means that you unconsciously still want them to come around and forgive you and take you back, which means you're still in it. You're still addicted. You're still wrapped up. You're in denial. You're in denial of how sick they are. And you're wrapped up in your delusion. So, there's somebody has this whole response about how when I shared my experience of being discarded on Christmas Eve, this person says it's not an impulse, it has been designed to maximize the pain. That's your assumption, but that isn't self-evident. It feels that way, and I'm not saying that that there isn't a part of them that has some of that experience. But the truth is that experience of them thinking that they're choosing to do it to you isn't their choice. It's being dictated to them by their mental illness. And that's where the denial has to stop. You have to go, this person can't help it. They can't help it. And if you realize that, then you'll disengage. You'll stop trying to fix them. You'll stop trying to get them to love you. But if you are angry, it means you're still on an unconscious level trying to get them to turn around and be with you, which means that you have some healing left to do. So I am going to disagree with you that they choose to do it. And a lot of people bring up, well, my borderline ex said they knew they did it, said they, knew that they were horrible. So that is a conscious assertion. That doesn't mean that they have true awareness. It doesn't mean that they are truly aware of what they're doing. It just means, there's a difference between having a superficial conscious observation and having true awareness on a deep level. I'm pretty certain that they don't have any clue how deeply they hurt you. That's not an excuse. It doesn't justify at all what they do, but it does explain it. And when I really see that, I can't be angry at her. I can only have compassion. And then I can look at myself and go, yep, I'm the one that got myself into this. And it's true. For me, I got myself into it. Nobody forced me into it. The flags were there. The red flags were there from the very first communication. I remember her first communication to me and me going, that seems like that might not be right. But I had my own desires and I pushed those awarenesses away. So you got yourself into it. And the idea that they are so good at manipulating you and that they were so good at blinding you and that you didn't see it coming, I have to call BS on that. Some part of you knew, and the other part of you won out, which was the part of you that wanted to believe what you wanted to believe. Anyway, we'll get to some more other stuff. So I disagree with you on that, and I think it's helpful for you. It's been helpful for me anyway, to just, to investigate. Maybe they didn't know what they were doing and that they're actually broken and mentally ill. And you're the one that chose to step into that bear trap. Staying angry at yourself for choosing to step in a bear trap is kind of insane. And it is, again, a sign of unresolved, untreated codependence. Here's an interesting one. This is earlier. Somebody else that I just mentioned earlier said, for some reason I get the impression you think that every victim of a borderline is a codependent. Yes, I've said that, and I will continue to say that. If you are in any kind of romantic relationship, and most likely any relationship with a borderline for more than a very short period of time, by definition you are a codependent, because you have to be a codependent in order to keep things going, because somebody who's not a codependent immediately goes, wow, this is crazy, I'm out of here. If you didn't do that, and not only did you not do that, but you work to stay in it, you are by definition a codependent. So I will say that, and I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. And you can disagree with me all you want. You have every right to disagree with me, but that is absolutely my position. And this person says, I would claim that only a small percentage of the victims are codependent. Well, I have an opposite view of that. People tend to fight for their relationships. When you stick your hand in a meat grinder, people tend to recoil with pain and terror. So trying to lump the relationship with the borderline into all other relationships is inaccurate, to say the least. Codependents tend to fight for their dysfunctional relationships. That is not a sign of being codependent. Fighting for an insane, destructive, dysfunctional relationship is a sign of codependence. Codependent is someone who has an abnormal need to get acceptance. That's not what a codependent is entirely. That part is true, But that also, codependents, they stay with borderlines that prove from the beginning that they don't really love you. The first time that they devalue you and discard you, that proves that they didn't love you, that they didn't share the same feelings you did. And um, so your need to stay in it and fix them and get their love is absolutely a sign of being a codependent. That is an abnormal need to get acceptance, love, and control. So, you may want to make it sound normal, but it's not. There's nothing normal about a relationship with a borderline. When two people meet, there is no way of knowing if the other one is a borderline. So now we have to talk about the difference between conscious and unconscious. Consciously, you're right. You had no idea. But as I said, if you were to look at it from the beginning, if you and I'm quite certain if I was to sit down with you and talk with you, and if you were to be honest with me, if you weren't trying to defend a position, if you were being honest with me, we would both agree that there were red flags from the get-go that you chose not to listen to. So even though consciously you may not have seen it, it means, that on an unconscious level you were choosing to ignore the very clear signs. So that's the whole thing. Borderlines on an unconscious level know if you are a codependent or not. The way they know that, they're not consciously thinking, oh, there's a codependent, there's a codependent. They're just running around looking to get their needs fixed just like everybody else. And they will gravitate towards the person who gives them the vibe that this person will save me, that I love this person, I like this person. And it's true, this is true with all relationships, even healthy relationships. We are drawn to the people that are vibing with us and connecting with us on an unconscious level. And it's our unconscious that drives all relationships. That's just a fact. So just because you don't remember consciously being aware doesn't mean that you didn't know. You knew on an unconscious level. Consciously you didn't. But you're trying to make it sound like you're an innocent victim. And there are no innocent victims in this. Everybody is a participant. So when two people meet, there's no way of knowing if the other is borderline. It's actually not true. Like I said, I knew from the get-go. And other people also. If you'll talk to other people that have interacted with that same person, if you were to get every single person and line them up who had, anywhere from 5 seconds talking with them to an hour to a week, you would find the ones that didn't connect were the ones that said from the beginning, yeah, there was just something about that person that kind of gave me a weird vibe, and then they did and said this, and I knew. So, that's your projection. You feel like this innocent victim that you walked into this bear trap, and it's not that there isn't some truth to that. It's just that it wasn't completely, undetectable. Let's see. Up to a point where the BPD plits or dissociates, she is like a normal person. They're not. They approximate it very well. They do a lot of things, but there's another thing, which is sometimes they're too perfect. They have it really put together, and they do everything perfectly, and that's another sign. That's one of the facades, and that in itself will make somebody go, "What is something's not right with this picture." I find it highly questionable that a borderline would be a codependent magnet. Codependents go for anything that gives them any acceptance. No, that's not true. Codependents go after the one person that won't give them acceptance. That's why you ended up with somebody who split on you and rejected you, because that's what you were looking for. If you're a codependent on an unconscious level, you are looking to reconnect with somebody or connect with somebody who's going to remind you of who it was that originally rejected you, usually your mother. And you're going to try and recreate that feeling of being with somebody who's unattainable and doesn't love you, so that you can finally get them to love you. That's why you have the need to fix them, because you're trying to fix the problem within yourself. So they absolutely are a codependent magnet. I mean, seriously, everything you're saying screams denial of codependence from my perspective. You don't have to believe it. It's okay if I'm wrong. It's okay if you don't buy it. But I think it's great for um, a good discussion. And then it says borderlines being just a subgroup of suitable persons. At what point did you think having a severe mental illness puts them in the subgroup of suitable persons? Anyway, and then a bunch of people jumped in there and had they disagreed as well. So I'm among the peanut gallery here. Somebody asked, how does one remove the need to check up on their ex-borderline friend? I mean, you can't remove the need. This is the thing about what borderlines and codependence both do, is they're trying to completely get rid of all of their feelings, and that is the problem. Have all of your feelings. The way to not take action on your need to, your compulsion to check on them, is by acknowledging, I'm really feeling like I want to fix this person. And that's when you take contrary action. This is where the 12 steps come in. So another short answer is get yourself to Codependence Anonymous, find a sponsor, and work through the steps. You'll learn how to take healthy actions and still accept your dysfunctional impulses and desires. Anyway, so I gotta get off because I got a client that's going to call me in a second. So, but I think I hit all the points that I wanted to hit. So let me know if you like this. If you don't like it, if you think it's too intrusive of me to respond to people's comments, if you think I'm being too harsh or unaccepting, let me know. I think it's great to have the discussion and to talk about it. I would like for this to be a place of discussion and that everybody's opinions are valid, even those who disagree with me. As long as you're not, destructive or abusive, I'll do the same. I'll do my best not to be destructive or abusive if I have a differing opinion. But as long as it's civil, I think let's keep the discussion going. Anyway, I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts on it. And anyway, that's it for me at the moment, and I'll see you guys soon.